Hey all, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, for our Bible study, we are going to be going over King Solomon. Here is a little bit of an overview of King Solomon. He was the second son to David. He was very young when he took over the throne. There is no actual evidence in the Bible that says what exact age he was, but people think he was between the ages of 12 and 15, somewhere in that range. The Lord appears to Solomon not once, but twice. Solomon prays to the Lord, and when he does this, he prays for blessings over the temple that he created for the Lord, and blessings for the people who come and visit and worship at the temple and worship the Lord. Then Solomon turns away from the Lord, but God keeps the lineage from King David going through Solomon, which all connects to Jesus in Matthew 1. You can see the example of this. In Matthew chapter 1, it goes all the way through, and Solomon is mentioned in that lineage that leads up to Jesus. And during Solomon's reign, it was 40 years, and in that time, he was able to make an amazing, beautiful temple for the Lord. The Lord's first appearance to Solomon happens in 1 Kings 3 5 through 15. And this reads, At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, Ask what I shall give you. And Solomon said, You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness and righteousness and uprightness of heart towards you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Although I am but a child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to govern this your great people? It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this, and God said to him, Because you have asked this, and you have not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right. Behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you have so that none like you has been before, and none like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if your will walks in my will, keeping the statutes and my commandment, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. So in this first appearance of in the first appearance the Lord makes to Solomon, he asks what Solomon, as the new king of Israel, wanted, and Solomon asks for wisdom, which God blesses to him, and also blesses him honor and riches, so that he is able to rule over the area where Israel is and where his chosen people are. Then, as we go through First Kings, Solomon starts building a temple for the Lord. And in chapter 8, he has, towards the end of that chapter, he prays to the Lord, asking for blessings upon the temple that he has built and on the people who that visit the temple, and just blessings for all of God's people in general. And they make tons of sacrifices. And then the Lord visits him again in 1 Kings 9, 1 through 9. Which reads, as soon as Solomon had finished building the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all Solomon desired to build, the Lord appeared to Solomon a second time, as he had appeared to him in Gibeon. And the Lord said to him, I have heard your prayers and your plea, which you have made before me. I have consecrated this house that you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there for all time. And as for you, if you will walk before me as David your father walked, with integrity of heart and uprightness, doing according to all that I have commanded you, and keeping my statutes and my rules. Then I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father, saying, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. But if you turn aside from me, you or your children, and do not keep my commandment and my statutes that I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land that I have given them, and the house that I have consecrated for my name I will cast out of my sight, and Israel will become a proverb and a byword among all people. And this house will become a heap of ruins. Everyone passing by it will be astonished and will hiss, and they will say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to his house? Then they will say, because they abandoned the Lord their God, who brought their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods and worshiped them and served them. Therefore the Lord brought all this disaster on them. So in this part again, the Lord is telling David, hey, if you are going to follow me and listen to me, I will continue to bless you and the people of Israel. But if you do not, bad things are going to come, and your rule will not be long, and this amazing temple that you have made will come down. Also in this, he's telling King Solomon that he is not bound by the temple, that he will dwell within the temple, but it is not something that holds him there. He is separate from it, but he is also always there when the people go to it and call upon him, whether that be in prayer or through sacrifice or other things. How Solomon turns away from the Lord. So Solomon, during his reign, he ends up putting his own desires of exotic women before God. He puts his own desires first, and ends up having 700 wives, which ended up turning him away from the Lord. And the Lord had warned him previously that, hey, these women will end up turning you away from me. You should not be with them, and instead you should follow me and glorify only me and not any other gods. Instead of using what Solomon was blessed with to glorify God, he used it to please his wives. He made them temples in which they could worship their gods and not the one true God. So they end up pulling Solomon away from God because they want these different temples, and Solomon uses his wisdom and all the things that he had been blessed with from God to, instead of please God, please these women that he wanted to have in his life. And that ends up making God angry and causes him to turn away from Solomon and the people. God raises up adversaries. 1 Kings 11 through 14. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, since this has been your practice, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. Yet for the sake of David your father, I will not do it in your Yet for the sake of David your father, I will not do it in your days, but I will tear it out of the hands of your sons. However, I will not tear away all of the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem that I have chosen. And the Lord raised up adversaries against Solomon, Hadad and Edmite. He was of the royal house of Edom. And what ends up happening is the beautiful temple that he made ends up being destroyed later on, as you continue reading, by the adversaries against the people of Israel. And in that, you can see that God has a plan in that part of scripture. He leaves one of the 12 tribes to Solomon's son so that the lineage of Jesus can lead back to that of King David. And it's just kind of interesting to see how the whole time God's keeping his word and keeping a plan even when his people turn against him. So, what can we learn from Solomon? In simple, when we stay in the path of God, we are able to do amazing things that glorify God with the gifts that we have been blessed with by God. When we put our own desires, though, before God, we become lost and things start to fall apart for us. Now, I am not saying that only good things will happen in your life when you follow God, and only bad things happen when you do not. However, when we put God before all things and live a God-pleasing life, our relationship with him strengthens, and we are not pulled away from him by earthly things. We may be knowingly or unknowingly doing this in our lives. We all have different talents that we can use to glorify God. We do this through what we do at work or through our different hobbies, and that is great. But it becomes an issue when our hobbies or our work or sports become the thing that we put first in our lives, and that spot should be reserved for God. And when we put those things first, it harms our relationship with God. But when we put God first in our lives, our relationship with him grows bigger and it flourishes. The temple Solomon built. Though the Lord Solomon was able, typo there. Though Solomon was able to create this amazing thing, however, when he turns his back on the Lord to chase desires that are not pleasing to the Lord, it all falls apart. So, what I want you guys that are listening to take from this is that we are all blessed in an abundance of different ways from God. For Solomon, he was blessed with wisdom, riches, and honor. For us, it can be the job that we are really good at or a hobby that we are really good at. It can be talents, athleticism, music. We all have something that we do that we are blessed by God to be able to do. When we are doing that to glorify God, it's a good thing. But when we start doing it and putting it before God and our other desire and using it to achieve desires that are before God, we fall apart in our relationship with God, because now we are doing things because we want to, not because we are glorifying God. God has been put in second place when we should not put God in second place. We should have put him above all in our lives so that we can have a strong relationship with him, and we are able then to walk a more Christian life than we would be if we had a weaker relationship with him. Now, this last part here is a video of the temple that Solomon would have made. It takes everything from the Bible that is explained on how the temple would be made and gives you sort of an image of what it is. Now, you don't have to watch this video, and if you don't, I hope you have an amazing day. But if you choose to, I think it's a pretty amazing video that gives a little bit of imagery to what is described in the Bible. Here's that video.
And it came to pass in the 480th year, after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, that he began to build the house of the Lord. And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. And the porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house. And for the house he made windows of narrow lights. And against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits broad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For without in the wall of the house he made narrowed rests round about, that the beams should not be fastened in the walls of the house. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle into the third. And the house, that is, the temple before it, was 40 cubits long. And the oracle in the forepart was 20 cubits in length, and 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in the height thereof. And within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high. And he set the cherubims within the inner house, and they stretched forth the wings of the cherubims, so that the wing of the one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another in the midst of the house. And he carved all the walls of the house round about with carved figures of cherubims, and palm trees and open flowers, within and without. And the whole house he overlaid with gold, until he had finished all the house. And for the entering of the oracle he made doors of olive tree. The lintel and side posts were a 5th part of the wall. So also made he for the door of the temple posts of olive tree, a 4th part of the wall. And the 2 doors were of fir tree. The 2 leaves of the one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding. And he carved thereon cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and covered them with gold fitted upon the carved work. And Solomon made all the vessels that pertained unto the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, and the table of gold, whereupon the showbread was. And the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side, and 5 on the left, before the oracle, with the flowers and the lamps, and the tongs of gold. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin. And he set up the left pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon the top of the pillars was lily work. So was the work of the pillars finished. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from the one brim to the other. It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was an handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubims. And every base had 4 brazen wheels, and the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. 1 laver contained 40 baths, and upon every one of the 10 bases 1 laver. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house, and 5 on the left side of the house. And he set the sea on the right side of the house eastward, over against the south. So was ended all the work that King Solomon made for the house of the Lord.
Hope you enjoyed that video. It just puts a little bit of image to everything being described in the Bible. I know first few times reading it through, it's kind of hard, at least it was for me, to put an image to that. So I hope this is able to help you as create an image as to the temple that Solomon was able to create for God with using his blessings from God. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I hope that you're able to take from this that we are always supposed to put God first in our lives so that we can strengthen our relationship with him and live a more God-pleasing life. Thank you all for watching the video, and enjoy your day.